morning, everyone.
Morning, buddy.
It is so wonderful to have all of you here. This is an amazing turnout on a rainy day. Thank you for coming to celebrate our, in case you didn't know, if you don't know you're here to celebrate the 15th year anniversary, thank you for being here anyway. But yes, 15 years as of April 10th, we started that little street market front.
It started out kind of big.
It did. It was
Like 30 people.
That first day that we met, we ran out of cushion. We ran out of space. Ran out of cushion. So it was quite a turnout, and it's been going strong ever since. The locations have changed. The people have changed, but a few of you have been here since the very beginning, and thank you for your support and being here all this time. It's a lot of work.
Thank you for being here the whole time.
Yes, thank you.
15 years.
15 years. Well, I missed a year. So 14 years. But yeah, I came down with this really bad chronic fatigue for about a year. I remember it was the year I turned 53, and apparently, as I was looking it up, my doctors were telling me it's kind of normal for that age. I don't know why, but around the early 50s, some men go through this really chronic fatigue, but it goes away, and it did. And but literally could not, was running into the center dividers on the freeway, could not stay awake. It was just bizarre. That's why I thought, okay, I need to not be driving in this condition. Anyway, survived that, got back, and here we are. So on April 10th, I woke up. I don't know what the dream was or nightmare. Well, I do know. I kind of remember vaguely. You know how dreams are. You never remember exactly what they are. But I wrote this poem on this day, and I thought it was very present on my mind first thing in the morning, despite the fact that cats were clawing me to come feed them. They had to, yes. Well, they and the third time the claws come out. If you don't move. But they had to wait. I had to get the outline of this poem down while it was on my mind. So some of you will recognize the reference, and I'll explain it as we go through this. So the poem is entitled 1%. The meaning of life, 42. Of course. Or any other random number is the best of all possible answers to that question. If you hear that answer as the ultimate damnation, that is all about expecting someone or something else to figure it out for you. Not only is life intrinsically meaningless, it is meaningless that it is meaningless, making life meaninglessness, which is the ultimate freedom, absolute power, and total responsibility. Yeah, that damn karma just keeps messing up the mojo. It is a call to action. It is as big as it is small. Just a hair's breadth of othering, and all is lost. All is suffering. All this oneness is not sameness. Oneness contains infinite differences, all working in cacophonous concert to create reality just as it is. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautifully perfect amazingness that is this and every moment. Intimacy is held closest in not knowing and letting go of delusions of certainty. Compassion and grace cannot be and need not be extended out. They are your natural state of being when the infinite is awake within. Within this infinite intimacy, there is no I. There is no you. There is only stepping up, taking care, and going through with elegant equanimity. This intimacy is where separations dissolve and othering goes to die. This 42, however, is expensive. It will cost you everything you think you are. Because inasmuch as you are meaningless, you are therefore inexplicably all possible definitions, all possible meanings. Any one identification that excludes any of this all is limitation. Being of service to every moment where it is, as it is, and not how you think it should be, is the highest level of existence. 42 is so expensive that 99% of us, 99% of the time, will not be able to live at this level. But that's okay. All we need is that 1%. That 1% in all of us, that 1% of the time for when, for whom, in whom, there are no levels. Okay. Oh, he's not frozen. Kurt, can you hear us? Okay, he's not frozen on my screen. It's the this has been messing up for the last few weeks, so I don't know what's going on with their system. But it's as long as he's animated on my screen, I trust that he's okay.
Keep moving, Kurt.
Yeah, just so I know you're alive.
Let us know.
All right. So I have to give a talk tomorrow at the Sweetwater Zen Center, so this is kind of the precursor of that talk. So we're not going to go down our usual koan study, but I asked Choa Sensei, who's the new abbot of Sweetwater Zen Center, if there was something he wanted me to talk about in particular. And he said, well, I'm interested in what you have to say about maintaining internal intentions while dealing with external distractions. So let's talk about what the other question that comes to mind is 2 weeks ago when I was with the students from Chapman University. They asked what is normally what most people a normal question most people ask of religious people, and this was a person who had been to Mountain Center a few times, so he was familiar with the practice, familiar with just in a little bit of Zen, but was now even more curious. So his question to me was, "What do Buddhists believe?" and I said to him, my response was, vague and ambiguous.
You objected?
I objected
to his question.
To his question. So I said, well, first of all, let's put this in context. Buddhism is the fourth largest religion in the world. So, and there are different schools of thought and beliefs within that rather large spectrum of Buddhists. So I cannot speak for Buddhists. I can speak for me. I can speak for my experience of Zen Buddhism, which is a particular school, and it's Soto Zen Buddhism, because there's Menzai Zen, there's Vipassana, there's all these these other schools of Zen that have not so much different beliefs, but different emphasis, different focuses that they have in their practice. But there are some unifying themes that come to mind. We do seem to all agree that we are one. And this oneness is comprised of this inextricable interconnectedness of all things. People, beings, space, universe, cosmos, all of it is interconnected. Nothing arises by itself. All things arise out of these dependent conditions. So we are all this effect of karma, and we are also causing karma, and we are in this continuous stream. And when it comes to what this entire cosmos is made up of, we revert to the dogma, if you will. If you're some of the words are a little dogmatic, is sunyata and anatta. Those words, sunyata is emptiness, and anatta is no self. You'll find those in most Buddhist schools. Beyond that, it gets a little, it kind of branches out. But I think that most of the schools, since those were the two of several concepts introduced by the original Buddha, most Buddhist schools, agree that we have those possibly in common. But what does this mean, and what does this look like in real life? Because we translate the word sunyata as emptiness, which is a horrible translation in English, because it doesn't mean that there's nothing there, but there's nothing that is attached to, everything is there, but nothing is attached to anything. So my rather convoluted translation of sunyata is undifferentiated everythingness. It is where all that everything exists. And all things that arise out of that are dependent on all those things that are within that emptiness. But that emptiness itself has no meaning, has no definition. It doesn't become defined until, like in quantum, the observer or you and I give it meaning. And all meaning is applied. There's no intrinsic meaning in anything at all. So we decide what things mean, which gives us a level of responsibility that most people miss, because most people think that meaning comes from outside of themselves, from God, from nature, and there are several meanings that, of course, as a culture, as a community, we often agree that things mean something. We use the word zafu and zabuton. Those are Japanese words, and no one in this room is Japanese that I can see. So, but we've agreed of what that is, and that we use this to do meditation on. You can do meditation on anything. There's nothing that's required that you use these things, and you could sit on a rock, and that becomes your zafu. A patch of grass, that's your zabuton. So we attach these meanings to certain things, and we've all agreed that is. But that is a construct. We make it up. We decide what that is. And where this rubber hits the road is, the example I have, it's kind of a funny example, and I got this quite often when I was working in HR. I'm glad to say now I said it in past tense for the first time. Like for 2 years after having retired, I was still saying, it was still very present tense, but now it's past for me. People would come in, and those of you who don't know, I worked on the dark side of HR. I did all the discrimination investigations, and anyone who was, found not in compliance with our policies with regard to that was, dismissed in some fashion or other. So the recruiters had the good job. They brought them in. And I was on the dark side. I took them out.
Push the button.
Yes, I pushed the button. So often enough, people would come to me and say, I'm feeling discriminated against. They're talking about me, and I just feel horrible. And I would ask them, well, what did they say? I don't know. It was in English, or it wasn't Spanish, or it wasn't Tagalog. I didn't understand it. And I went, well, how do you know that they were talking about you? And I don't know. I could just feel it. So because I was a good HR professional, I would have to go and investigate this. Usually, no one knew what the person's problem was. They weren't talking about this person. They weren't even sure who the person was. So, which may have been a bigger problem because this person was working with them and they didn't know who she was. So that's a whole other dynamic that was probably going on. And usually, if that was the outcome of the investigation, I usually go to the manager and say, maybe some team building. I don't think your employees know each other very well, and maybe if they got to know each other, they would feel less, intimidated by it. I mean, these are nurses working on the floors. It's fast paced. It's busy. People are sick and dying. There's not a lot of time for chit chat. And the ones that were found chit chatting were not treated very nicely because nurses are real. They do not play games. So appreciate their commitment to that job because it is hard. So, but it's interesting that we have this ability to take something that we don't understand and give it a name. So this person had experienced someone saying something, maybe looking over at their, how people do, and she immediately gave that meaning. Not a lot of basis in reality, but that was very meaningful for that person, and it had a devastating impact on that person. That person felt hurt and discriminated against. But all of that she made up. There was nothing in that. There was nothing in what the other person did or what they admitted to doing that would have caused that feeling. All of it was caused inside of them. And the other experience I've had myself personally is I've had someone yelling at me in some foreign language, and I didn't even realize they were yelling at me because I may accidentally cut them off or something. I drive, so that's what drivers do, right? We accidentally cut other people off. So I'm being, cursed at by this person in a parking lot, and I'm looking around going, are they talking to me? What did I do? And then my friend who understood the language translated it for me. And then I realized what they had said, and they were saying it to me, and I thought, it struck me at that point. I'm like, prior to knowing what those words meant, it had no impact. I had no feeling about it whatsoever. And so there is that space that is there. So but you have that choice either before and after you know what those words mean. Yeah, you understand their intent, but your reaction is still within your control. You can decide whether or not to take offense to that. And the other experience I had the other day at my open mic group, and all my open mic group is comprised of 20-somethings, and half of what they say I have no understanding of the words they are using. So, and sometimes I tap a Gen Zer on the shoulder and go, what does that mean? And so I need a translation. It's English words, but they're being used in very different ways. But these things that we don't know what they mean until we make up the meaning, and then we make up a reaction to the meaning, and then we add all this stuff to it. And the challenge, of course, is it's all empty. None of that meaning is just meaning that it's given. None of it has any impact except the impact you decide to have about it. How then do we deal with that? What about that is external, and what about that is internal? Which is the question. But did you have a question before I go to the next subject?
It just reminded me that, like probably most people in this room, when somebody cuts me off or something bad happens, I'll honk or I'll give them a dirty look or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Then I realize, this dirty look thing is like pretty stupid. Half the time, they don't even notice. They don't even notice that I'm looking at them.
I know. And you're working hard at that look.
Yeah, and I'm working hard at that look. And the other half, like, they don't care.
Yeah.
So then the other half, they're like, screw you too.
Yeah.
So it's like I got nothing out of this. It's like a totally worthless thing I do.
I know.
So I just quit doing it. It's like there's no point. It's just like totally useless.
Yeah. But it takes a while for us to get there. So the second aspect that I think most schools of Buddhism agree on is anatta, no self, which really means that there's no fixed self. There's nothing about you that stays the same. And this so-called, these identifiers that we have of ourselves are constructs. We make them up. Or someone has told us that we are what we are, and we believe them, and we accept that. But there's nothing within us that is stuck with those identifiers or stuck in these names that people call us. We choose that. But we did not get here by ourselves. All of us had parents in some way or another. Somebody gave birth to us. Whether they stuck around after that, they may not have. And others of us had families that raised us. We were raised in a particular culture, a particular religion. We were encouraged to do things in school and become things when we grow up. So all these identifiers we take on and we think that they're real. Usually, and this is when Buddhism becomes kind of the religion of last resort, some trauma happens and our identifiers no longer work. And we need some place to re-identify. If you're lucky, you land in this practice and that doesn't get reinforced because the fact that you're without identifiers is your natural state, is what's real. And there is nothing, and in that we are completely risen out of the dependent conditions. We didn't get here by ourselves. We don't stay here by ourselves. We are inextricably interconnected, interdependent on everything around us. There is nothing external to us. There is nothing internal to us. We are all of it, all at the same time. What was the movie? Everything, Everywhere, at once. To use a rather what's now become an odious cliche, and that is, I think, literally true. I mean, science is now beginning to catch up with it. This is a 2,500-year-old philosophy that science is now beginning to bear out as being real. So with these so-called internal intentions and external distractions are also not real. So that doesn't mean that you don't have them or can't use them, because yes, the objective world is still here. We still have, this oneness shows up as all these different people sitting in this room. The weather shows up spoiling my picnic.
Just for you.
I know. So, I mean, objective reality is still part of what we have to deal with. But we are not separate from that objective reality. We are that objective reality. And the whole purpose of doing this is being real. And how often have we heard that when people express some fantastic idea of what they want us to do or what they think they are, and we're like, get real. That's what Zazen is. Zazen is getting real, being in reality just as it is, not as you want it to be, because we all want, someone said to me yesterday, a friend was over for lunch and we opened my front door to get the Uber Eats delivery, and there was a package from Amazon, and my friend said, a gift from Daddy Bezos. And I was like, did he send me $1 billion or $2 while he was at it? So that was me not wanting to deal with reality, not having $1 billion or $2. And certainly we all want things to be different. We want things to be what we want them to be. We want people to agree with us. We want people to support us, to praise us, to be what we expect to be. And when they're not that, we're very quick to attribute some reason for their fault of not agreeing with us. So we do have this. And vice versa. If we're not agreeing with someone else, they're very apt to attribute some rather negative fault to us as well. So how do we deal with that? Since none of this has any meaning anyway, and it's all empty. Why bother? There's this tendency to lapse into nihilism with this, and this is. Defeats the purpose, because if it's meaningless, it means it has no meaning. It's meaninglessness. And if you're now saying that, oh, well, it doesn't matter, you've just added meaning to meaninglessness. So how do you stay in this completely free, undifferentiated everythingness? Because that is what we all are. And we all, certainly we are these karmic results and causes happen at the same time. So there's the current the current generation of parents is now raising their kids to believe you could be anything you want in the world. That is probably not true, but it's certainly positive. So there's some limits on what we can do in this particular form of our arising out of the dependent conditions. But we can always do whatever this is. We can do our best at with what we have, and I really think that that's all that's called for, because we have reality as it is, and this reality is us as it is, and it isn't always in our favor. It is just as it is. My favorite quote from Alan Watts: "If you understand, things are just as they are. If you don't understand, things are just as they are." So there is no way out of things just as they are. No matter how we try to couch it or blame or change in many ways. Now, this also doesn't mean that that it stays the way it is, because nothing stays in any way at all. We are in this constant flow of change. There is nothing but change. Every 7 years approximately, there's a more precise measurement, but approximately every 7 years, all the cells in your body are renewed. You are a completely new person after every 7 years, and that's amazing. Now we tend to want to replicate what worked in the past, and so we continue that forward. But we want to we also want to get rid of what didn't work. So we spend a lot of time trying to improve whatever it is we think we are, and that's not a bad thing. Working to get better, be better, be real, is a good thing to do. It still leaves us in this reality that we do have to take care of, and that's the compassion side. That's the part that the third thing that I think all Buddhists agree on is that this is a practice of compassion. We're constantly invoking compassion in every single chant that we do, everything that we read, and everything that we talk about taking care of is all about compassion. Deep forms of empathy, starting with ourselves, because we start the three precepts are do good. Cease from evil is the first one. Do good for others, and it's in that very precise order. So, ceasing is sitting your butt down on the cushion and just stop doing stuff. Stop thinking. Just sit and breathe. That's the ceasing. And then do good. And that's you taking care of yourself. That's all you have to do. Just sit there, breathe, take care of yourself. What needs to be taken care of? Then do good for others. Because if you haven't done the good to begin with, you can't do good for others. And if you haven't stopped doing evil, or stopped doing that which separates you from other beings or reality, you can't even begin to do good. So that order is very precise. Sit down, shut up, and breathe. Take care of yourself, and take care of others. That's all it is. And the rules are very, very clear. I'm not going to repeat the entire Fuka Zengi, but Dogen was pretty hard hitting with it. He basically says, sit solidly in samadhi and think not thinking. How do you think not thinking? Non-thinking. This is the art of Zazen. Well, that was clear as mud. So, thinking is just one of the 6 major senses that you have. You have 5 other senses. So you don't need the thinking during Zazen. I'm rereading. Well, I heard on audio. I listened on audiobooks to Sapolsky's Determined, and then because I didn't understand half of what he was saying, I bought the book, and now I have to look up all those words that he was using in that audiobook. But I'm just impressed with the fact that we have tests that show that our brain engages before we're conscious of it. So we are before thought, before we know what we're thinking, the brain already knows. The brain is already engaged and is going to take the action that you intended. So you really don't have to do all this thinking. Save the thinking for when it's really necessary. Sitting in zazen doesn't function. Let it go. And use the breath. I love at one of the kids at kids, they're all kids to me, the chaplain students, said, I just let my thoughts melt away. I thought, oh, love that word. Let your thoughts melt. Melt away, dissolve. You don't need them right now. They will still be there. Your brain is just the sixth sense that you will have. Give it a rest. Let it take a break during zazen. And you'll find automatically will happen just because you do that, you'll find that begins to expand itself because you realize you don't need all that thinking most of the time anyway. And you can reserve, the higher functions for, higher brain functions for when you really need them. Most of the time, we're doing the same thing over and over again every day, and your brain has already told you what you need to do, especially if it's habitual. So, no thought, just take care of it. Just be in the moment and take care of what needs to be taken care of. Those are the instructions. It's really very simple. It's simple to say. Not so easy to do. Doing it on a regular basis does make it easier, little by little. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes a day helps reinforce that. So dealing with the so-called external horribleness, some people call it Trump, some other people call it Biden. Depending on what your political persuasion is, we think that this is external to us, and we think this is, something that is causing us to be in pain. But if indeed we subscribe to this belief, and it is a leap of faith to believe that we are all one, then indeed that is not separate from us. And what we call it, how we hold it, is up to us. And what we do with that energy, and how we channel that energy, also up to us. Not outside, not something that's causing you pain from up there, be it the White House or Congress, or your neighbor or the car next to you that just cut you off. Again. All of it, every single moment, you are connected. You are interconnected. You are interdependent. You are one with all of it, without any separation. The separation, you make that up. It's a story we tell, and it's a lie. So be this sunyata, and be this anatta, and be this compassion that, without any effort at all, automatically extends out of that place, because it is your natural state to be compassionate, to be pre-thought, to be just to take care of reality just as it is. All right. Will this work in San Diego tomorrow? Feedback. Yes, Aaron.
A little bit on it.
Oh, yes, people have complained of that. Yeah, no. Yeah.
The next 15 years.
It is being recorded, and Alex usually posts these on YouTube, I believe. Am I telling the truth, Alex, or is he there? Anyway, so I apologize. People have complained that I don't speak loud enough. Um, oh, the heat's on. So, well, that's an external excuse. I will try to project. Yes, I did. But we got so many people today. This is fabulous. All right, questions, comments? Yes.
So it occurs to me there's another thing that I think we all hold. And I'm speaking way out of my class, but it's that life occurs in the present moment. It's another foundational component to this practice, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we operate. That's what we take care of the present when we're not fretting about the future or regretting about the past.
Right.
But we're taking care of this moment, this right now. And this is where our life is happening.
Yeah, I think that's true more so for Zen practitioners. I do know that with some Buddhist schools, like we talked about the guy who studied the Diamond Sutra, that particular school believed that it took many, many lifetimes to be a Buddhist. And that and that same school also believes in a separate nirvana, this place that you get. Nirvana is described as this place where you are no longer affected or affecting karma. You're removed from karmic effects. That is not shared by all Buddhist schools. So that is a particular sect of Buddhism that does believe that. And certainly like heaven and hell, that's very comforting for people. They like that, not focus. I mean, I was raised a conservative Christian household that taught that don't store up worldly goods. Your ideal is to give all that up and so you get to heaven, and don't do bad things so you don't go to hell. So there is that dualism somehow snuck in to some of the schools of Buddhism. So they're not all of them are so focused on that here now. We are. I mean, certainly that is definitely a Zen school. Certainly Vipassana, I believe, and definitely Rinzai. Rinzai is probably really hardcore about being now, because they don't bother speaking to you. They just shout, and Rinzai will hit you with his shit stick.
I was going to say, isn't the present moment, in a certain sense, not contradictory, but the present moment is gone like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not stable. I mean,
No.
It's constantly being in the present moment. So there's a certain amount of uncertainty in that.
Exactly.
And the only thing really certain in our lives, in a sense, is what happened in the past. To be experienced.
Well, is that certain?
Not really certain.
Because where is that?
Yeah.
I think that, because the past, and especially the way memory works, somebody just come in? Only because the food is due. It's going to be delivered in a moment. Oh, it was Gary. Okay. Gary, I thought you were delivering lunch. The way memory works, they've discovered that it does not work chronologically. We don't remember the past in order. We remember the past in blocks, and there are usually gaps in that, and we fill it in so it seems to be somewhat chronological, but that's not the way memory works. And since the past is gone, it's not there. And what we remember about the past, and Maizumi Roshi said it, after he often said very startling things in his talk. So, the first one, that Zazen is a gimmick, which still hurts my heart. The other one is that memory is a lie. And to a certain extent, that's true. What we remember, and I've seen this in my own memory. I will have a very clear memory about something. I'm going, I know I wrote this down in my journal, and then I will go back to my journal. I usually keep a daily journal. I will go back to my journal. I either don't find it at all, or it was barely mentioned. It was not at all important But in the day that I'm remembering it, it was all consuming. And I assumed that it was all that in the past, and it really wasn't. So I don't know that our past is certain. We think it was.
But I'm just thinking certain things in our past, certain, I know in my life, certain things happen on certain days.
Yeah, you were born.
Impact on my when I was born.
Yeah.
My dad passed away.
Yeah, certainly the events, they happened. The meaning that we ascribe to those events, the reactions that we're having to those events change. Grief does that, over time. You'll have a tragic happening or the passing of a family member will happen, and you feel a particular way at that time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, you will still remember that event, but your reaction to it will have changed over time. So nothing about that is stuck in any particular place. The event happened. That's certain. How you feel about that event, what that event means to you now in the present moment, and how you need to take care of that grief in the present moment is different than it was at the time of the event. So that is, you're right. The now is constantly changing, and we can never capture it. By the time it becomes thought and comes out of our mouth, it's 30 seconds later. So we're constantly late to the game. And always chasing this past that we think is real. But once it's gone, it's no longer there. It's an event. It had an impact at that time, but that impact continues to flow on and change. We can get stuck. We can create a story that we get stuck to. But does that story mean the same thing year, 5, 10 years from when you first created that story? And I think, whereas Tyler, exposure therapy does that for people. The retelling of that story will wear it out and allow it to dissolve and change. So similar. Okay. I'm not a therapist. Yeah, wear out the reaction. Yeah, because people do get trauma does that to people. So it's I think it's important to, like you said, the flow. That's real. Is that you can't stay in the present moment because there's no moment to stay in. It's moved on. You are constantly moving and changing and growing, and becoming something else. What's the old saying? You cannot stick the same hand in the same river twice. That river's gone. Your life has changed. Your hand has changed. You have changed. So remaining fluid is the important part of that flow. Yes.
I have a 16-year-old daughter. Fantastic, and I drive her to school. And that's my job. I drive her mom to I drop her off. And we have these wonderful conversations, and it's always a challenge to talk to somebody who's 16. And obviously, I like that in philosophy, religion, and whatnot. And we're talking about all of this stuff, and always present, making sure it's a conversation 2 ways, right? We don't want to be too overwhelming to our younger people. And we were talking about mindfulness, and the word that came up for me that I shared with her was the word disposition. And as I was thinking about disposition, I was sharing with her about how it's an internal experience of how we're present in what's going on inside of us, and that it's something to look at. It was kind of inspire her to tap into how she might be feeling when she's at high school talking to her friends, maybe she's having this and as I think about that word disposition, it's really powerful because with Dogen's words, which are so powerful, solid, right? You have this idea of the iron mountain, right? This very solid kind of quality to when we're sitting, right? And there's definitely an experience that arises in that solid sitting moment. And the other part of that is the fluid part, the fluid sitting, right? So, and we know Zen plays this game, right, where we're doing kinpin, we're doing sitting, solid sitting. So the question I have for you is, solid sitting, fluid sitting, they're obviously very different. We know that because we are driving a car and we're doing our sitting, but we're also sitting in a chair doing our sitting. What is that? How do you reflect upon that or teach us more directly? Because most of our life is not in the solid sitting on a cushion. It's in that fluid sitting of listening to a client, being with our daughters or dropping them off to school, or flicking somebody off in traffic, or whatever that variation might be. Can you speak to that a little bit? I'd be very curious, solid versus fluid sitting.
I think that we all manifest at different vibrational points when we're sitting still. And we've managed to not, be in a space where we're not being distracted or disturbed by, anything else. It feels like that's how it's an interpretation of what we're experiencing. Is that, oh, stillness, this is great, it's solid, and it usually feels good until the next thought comes up and disturbs you. So it's that solid sitting and the flowing sitting is an interpretation of what it is we're doing. Because even mountains, I remember reading Dogen's poem in which he talks about mountains walking. And it took me a while to realize that that metaphor was talking about me. And I'm looking, and I remember driving up to Yokoji, looking at the mountains as I'm, driving through San Jacinto on the way to Highway 74. Going, yeah, I guess when there's an earthquake, the mountains walk, they move. So I was still externalizing it. And it wasn't until I realized, oh, it's not about that mountain. it's me as the mountain. But yeah, that but the mountains are not still, they also flow. Everything vibrates. We know that nothing is still, and we know that nothing is solid. But we do have, and at the same time, we have this experience of feeling completely settled, completely at home, without any disturbance or distraction, able to just take on whatever is there. Because we are that huge, that big, that solid. So it is that, but it doesn't last. Just like these enlightenment experiences that people have, and even Dogen said to his teacher, who said, "You're obviously who acknowledged his enlightenment, says, don't acknowledge me for something that's temporary." And the teacher further acknowledged him, as he said, not only did body and mind drop off, but you dropped it off. So when you are in that space, when you're interpreting that feeling of sitting as solid, that's what it is. But don't get stuck there, because what happens is, I like this solid feeling, I want to get back to that. And there's no there's no going back. Time, as far as we know, we'll see what physicists come up with. Time only flows in one direction. So they're trying to capture these feelings of that enlightened state or that solid sitting is the delusion, because you're separating yourself from what's going on right now. If what's going on right now is you're feeling solid, that's great, that's solid, that's great. But the next thing you're moving in your car, also great. Also practice. None of it is separate from practice. No part of life is separate from practice. It's all practice. But it takes a while because we still want to separate it. It's like, this is Zen because it feels good. Even though my legs hurt, it still feels good. And this is not Zen because it feels bad. Zen does not exclude anything. And the work is to be present with all of it, no matter how that shows up.
So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're also basically saying that even before any of us have ever sat or learned about Buddhism in any sense, still practicing.
Yep.
We're still existing.
Yep.
We're just attaching to stuff, objects, suffering, as needed.
Yeah. You just repeated the Buddha's enlightenment story. So all beings have the wisdom of the Tathagata. All. Nothing's excluded. But for our upside down thinking, we don't realize it. That's what the Buddha said.
My mom was using it as a politics all the time. I don't know what to call it. She always says like it's read nature delusion.
Say again. Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Poisons.
Yeah.
Poisons.
Or hindrances.
Right. I see in my life where reading nature especially.
Yeah.
I thought when I felt when I acted this way or I feel whatever. The delusion, which I know we talked about a bit, like, holding on to identity, holding on to the past. These are all like things. Variance is a delusion.
Yeah.
So, my question is like, kind of answer this a little bit, but I'm really curious, like, on a daily, like, basic level, like, how do you move from attachments, delusion and whatnot, into, like, our natural self? Like, what is the...
Well, I have bad news for you. It's a package deal. You don't get rid of delusion. Enlightenment includes delusion. Greed works to a certain extent. It's how you use it. How you use anger is very, very focusing. It's just an energy. It's an energetic that in which you are laser focused on one thing in particular, but you get to decide how that manifests. This practice does not make you anything other than who you really are.
So does mindfulness then just being able to direct those different, or like see which the energy is useful and unuseful?
In a way. So mindfulness is only one half of that equation. I realize it's where people tend to focus, but mindfulness tends to be very observational. But the other half of that is mindlessness, and that which happens before thought, and that you're just taking care of it, no matter what it is. What's right there in front of you, just assess what needs to be done to take care of it, do it. It's not about picking and choosing or trying to say, well, how do I channel this energy? How do I do this? It's like, just take care of it. Because you naturally know what to do. Child runs out to the street. There's no, how do I channel my energy to go? No, you respond, and it is without any thought at all. You place your hand on a burning stove. Your body tells you what to do. You don't have to think about that. So mindfulness is a good thing, but it's not the whole thing. Use reality as it is. Take care of reality as it is. Steve.
So, kind of add on to what you were saying earlier on about meaning too. Would you equate the act of attributing the meaning to a
Yeah.
very act of
Yeah.
trying to give meaning to the experience? That is delusion.
That is delusion, but delusion is not a bad thing.
Right.
So how is that? Since you have the control to actually attribute whatever meaning, give it a meaning that works. If giving it a meaning that creates more suffering, not helpful, which might be an initial response. So you see somebody killed in front of you, then you're going to have a reaction to that. But you do have the space and the time that this practice gives you to reinterpret that. It is lunch should be here pretty soon, so we're going to thank you for all of your questions and your participation. we're going to close because we could be here forever, which I would enjoy. But we need to get cleaned up and then party and enjoy each other. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for all of your input and all of your work these last 15 years. It has been a tremendous honor and pleasure to be here to do this. And thank you. Lots of gratitude. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The Dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The Dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The Dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Okay, so on the four vows, slow it down just a bit because you want everyone to absorb, because you're vowing to do the impossible. So take that in. Yeah, not too fast. Can't skim over that. These are the most important vows. The other thing about being a bodhisattva, which these are the four bodhisattva vows, is that you're also vowing to be the last to cross over into nirvana before you let everybody else go before you. So you what? Yes. All right. So if you would help us get cleaned up, the food should be here any moment, and hopefully it comes on time. I should check my email to make sure it's coming. Indian vegetarian food is on its way.
Wow.